Good, very late evening to you. This is Brian O'Shea with another episode of Investigate Everything. Got a late start today. I spent the last 2 days driving a friend to go get some help for his head. So it was nice to get out to the countryside and take that long drive, and he's doing just fine. It was I guess a stress meltdown or something. But yeah, I think that's pretty bold when someone knows they can't handle everything themselves and they seek help. So good on him, and we wish him well. And I was glad I was there to help him. So I'm going to get right into it. We're not going to get finished tonight. It's very, very late. I just wanted to try to establish a schedule with everyone. So for everyone showing back up, welcome. Good to have you. And if you miss this, don't worry. I'll post the streams, the recordings, and we will continue on this. So what are we talking about tonight? Why was it important for me to get on this late? On this long drive on my way back when I was alone, I've heard all this stuff about Joe Kent. Obviously, you guys know that's the NCTC, or the National Counterterrorism Center director that resigned. The way he resigned, I thought, was inappropriate. Because it seems like it was an attention grab. It seemed like it was activism. Okay, despite what everyone is saying about his loyalty, and not to take away from his military service. That's, he was in the units, same kind of units I was in, and I would not take that away from anyone, even if you're an airman or a janitor. Okay, he's done amazing work for this country. But I want to stress to people that when you see something constantly being put up front about someone, that's called framing. Let me explain what I mean. The first thing I noticed when people were talking about Joe Kent was he's a widower, God rest her soul, and he did like 13 combat tours. All of that's true, and there's nothing bad I would ever say about that. But let's remove Joe Kent from the picture. And if that's what you hear, that's what I mean by framing is what it seems like is being set up. And it's not Joe Kent saying that, so let me say that. But it's the people who are platforming him, like Tucker Carlson, all of the legacy media channels are treating him like all of a sudden he's this great guy when they were just calling him a racist and a warmonger not too long ago. But the first things we're always hearing, and I don't have a mashup video, but we're always hearing, lost his wife, he's a Gold Star husband, he did all these combat tours, all very, very real, respectable, and sad things. But it's been my experience when people lead with that about someone, about their qualifications, which those are not qualifications, those are parts of his life. You have to be on the lookout for framing. So what I mean by framing is, it seems like it's been set up with Joe Kent, where if you say anything about the way in which he resigned, what was in his resignation letter, that you're bad and you hate vets and, you're being insensitive. Think about like Joe Biden. What did we always hear about Joe Biden? First, the guy couldn't talk. He was too old, he's senile, he started muttering and sputtering and spitting and sharding. And they'd say, oh, he talks like that because he had a stutter. He's been working really hard to get over that. That's framing. Now you're a bad guy if you say anything about Joe Biden. Or Hunter Biden, crackhead extraordinaire. When he got caught on video that he shot himself, what did we hear? As MAGA, what did we hear? You're being mean because that's just a father doing best to help his son. That's framing. And we're hearing framing constantly. Now, what we're going to do with this segment of videos, and this is why we can't do it tonight all at once, we're going to just do the first section of it. I'm going to turn on the Tucker Carlson interview, and I want you to look for the framing. What are you looking for? You're looking for anything Tucker Carlson says in describing Joe Kent. And again, not Joe Kent's fault. We'll talk about Joe Kent later. What I really want to focus on is the media storm around him and learning how to recognize when something's coming down the pike. I don't know if that means they're going to try to run Joe Kent for president. I don't know if that means someone has, gotten to Joe Kent to turn him against President Trump and against the Iranian conflict, which we are winning handily, by the way. And even Joe Kent was a big proponent of, being hard on Iran. But put all that aside. Just watch the way in the beginning of the video what Tucker Carlson puts up front about him and about himself. I'll stop it and we're going to go through it. So your comments are more than welcome. One thing about this show, if you disagree with me, this isn't the place for it. Okay, I'm not going to debate with you. I've done that in the past. It just wastes time. There's people who are here to learn and see what I think. And I want to see what you think. And I want to see that you have things that I may not have thought of. If I get any trolls in the chat, I'll let you troll because I don't really feel like going into Rumble and kicking you out and going into YouTube because I'm on a streaming platform. I'm just going to ignore you. There's something going on, and if you cannot see it, I want you to recognize it. I want you to start recognizing it. There's a pattern that's been happening around Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, now Joe Kent, Sean Ryan. I don't know if it's a political coup is mounting up. I don't know if these people are all gathering together to throw the midterms to get Donald Trump out of the way for whoever they want to run. But there's definitely an effort here going on. I'm not going to get into possible foreign influence there. I think that's part of it, but you know me, I'm pretty logical guy. I don't say anything unless I can prove it or there's a preponderance of evidence to show it. There is a lot of interaction with certain foreign officials. We'll do that on another episode. For tonight, I want you to dissect and dismantle this interview with me and tell me what you see. We're also going to go into what are the roles of the NCTC. I can sit there and say, do what everyone else is doing and say, oh, that's, he did it because of this and he did it because he, maybe had this. No, let's just look at their words and dismantle them against something called reality and facts. So facts we have at our fingertips. The layout of the intelligence community and the roles of the NCTC director and the organizational chart. And why? And I bring this up because at some point in the interview, Joe Kent is talking about how he was blocked from investigating the Charlie Kirk assassination. We'll talk about. I don't want to frame the conversation, so let me just say we'll talk about that. Okay. And just to underline what just happened, it's hard not to frame things when you already have an idea in your head of what you're thinking. It's really hard to be unbiased. All of my bias comes from my research, but I don't want to bias you. I just want you to see if you spot what's happening here. In this interview alone. Okay, and Patrick, I see your comments. I see everyone's comments. I'm going to put them on the stage so I don't interrupt my flow because I'm ADHD and I'll end up talking about gnomes in Iceland or something like that, and then it'll take us an hour to get back to the subject. So let's just go into the first part of this, and then I will stop it. We're going to talk about it and get going here. Okay. Oh, actually, that's a good question, Frank. I'm putting that on the stage. You mean like framing for our wonderful mayor here in NYC? He suffered the Islamic slurs. He's not changing how. Yes, that's a perfect example of framing. That's a great example because it's my belief that Mamdani, his Mamdani, and a lot of these brand new Muslims who also happen to be part of the Democratic Socialists of America use, in my opinion, Islam to usher in communist ideas and communist regulatory initiatives. And they use that because, and it's such a good point, Frank, they've done that, and they've also played with the words, and communists do this throughout history. I'm sorry, but when did Islam become a race? But they say it all the time. If you say something bad about Islam, you're a racist. It's not a race. It's not a race at all. Okay, and so that's a great example. Anyways, good point. And Patrick, to be fair, I'm going to put you on the stage. You've got a fantastic Irish name, I just have to say. We had a great St. Patrick's Day the other day. I took Agent Dreidel out, the Mossad spy who seduced me many years ago, and, you know, so that's another long story. We'll save that for another day, but it's funny, and we've had fun with it. There's a couple morons out there that, when they were invited by my wife, who's Jewish, to go to Chabad so they can actually learn and experience it without, because a lot of people are saying, oh, Chabad's cult and everything. So she invited this one pundit, and this pundit came out and said, oh, there's a CIA op where they're inviting Christians to Chabad to lure them away from their Christian faith. And I'm thinking, that's weird, because Chabad services are Saturday and Christian service, I'm pretty sure, are Sunday. But yeah, so thanks, Patrick. I appreciate that. Edingo Bra, my friend. Edingo Bra. And if you find that, it's in my Twitter, which is Brian O'Shea SBI on X. But you can see the, if you just search the images, you'll find it pretty quickly. But we had a good time, and I actually banged out a little karaoke, which get enough Guinnesses in me and you might experience that yourself someday. So okay, here we go. We're gonna jump right into this. I'm gonna shut off my camera, but I'm still here. I'm taking notes too. If you can't stay up late, that's fine. This is recorded. We will post it. Okay, but here we go. And just some background so everyone knows. Joe Kent, the National Counterterrorism Center director, resigned, and he did a big kind of, almost, it looked like a scripted note to me, but I don't want to bias you. And it's really made news. Now, really quickly, it's not a big deal when the NCTC director, or any director, resigns for that matter. They could protest all they want. It's not a big deal. You just replace them. Like the CIA director, for instance. We used to have a joke in the intelligence community that anytime there was a new CIA director, we'd laugh. We'd be like, I guess they're mad at him, or that's the end of his career, because most CIA directors, except for Bush and some exceptions, that's pretty much it. You don't really see much of them after that position, but typically it's not a big deal. So how did this become such a big deal? Well, that's easy. Legacy media. So you got to ask yourself when you're watching this, why is MSNBC, ABC, NBC, PBS, BBC, why are they amplifying this? Well, you know the answer, but we'll get there. So without much further babbling from me, let's get into it. We're doing some work tonight, so hang with me. And if you do have questions, put them in the chat. I am going to throw those right there. So there you go, and I will make them bigger. There we go. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let's just do the regular one. And we'll do the tall. And bigger font. There we go. I'll do medium. That's perfect. Let's go. Now I'm not starting it from the beginning. I just stopped it right here when he's framing. And you may see me go back and forth a little. That's because I want to hear things twice. So just be patient. Let's rock and roll.
And it's an entire generation of men who look and sound, for the most part, very much like Joe Kent. So the implication, of course, he doesn't care about security, or he's soft on Iran. Joe Kent spent, the majority of his 20s and 30s fighting Iranian proxies and watching his friends get killed by them. So this is someone who's actually earned the right to speak about Iran and the war on terror. And of course, he was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. So he's thought a lot about terrorism in this country and the blowback from events like this. And we're going to ask him about that as well. But the other thing to notice about Joe Kent, and it may be his defining factor, is that he doesn't slander anyone. His resignation letter was not an attack on Donald Trump. It wasn't a promise to write a tell-all memoir about what he saw on the inside, or to aggrandize himself, or to get a job on a TV show, or sell something. I asked him at dinner last night, what are your plans? None. He did this purely because he believes, as he'll explain in a second, this is the only way to save the United States from certain disaster. Tell the truth. air the secrets, be honest for once in decades about what is actually happening, things that everybody who lives here suspects are happening. In some cases, we're probably wrong. We've come to the wrong conclusions. That's okay. Tell us what actually happened. Tell us why you did this. And let's reorient this country where it should be, which is around its own citizens. Make the decisions that you make based on one criterion. Is this good for my people or not? In the way that a father would lead his family or an officer would lead his troops. It's not complicated. Everybody wants that. That's not a partisan question. That's a human question. And that's the question Joe Kent is posing. Why can't we do this? Why can't we say this? It's not attacking anybody. Joe Kent himself does not attack anybody. But this is a last-ditch attempt, not simply to save the country from disaster in Iran, but to save the country, period. And as you listen to him speak, ask yourself, is this a man who's working for Hezbollah, or is an egomaniac or a leaker, or is this a man who says very little when he has nothing to say, who speaks straightforwardly and with honesty, self-evident honesty? Is this a man of dignity and decency? Is this a man that America once had a lot of? Is this a man who was once, in effect, the American archetype, the guy you looked up to, the guy you wanted your son to be? Whether you agree with him or not, maybe you're reaching completely different conclusions. But as you listen to him speak, ask yourself, is this the kind of person who makes me proud to be a fellow American? Because it's really a referendum on us. If we can't see that Joe Kent, whatever you think of his opinions, is the kind of man this country should be producing and should be elevating and should be proud of, if we can't see that, then we've failed the test and we've lost. But judge for yourself. Here's Joe Kent. Joe, thanks a lot.
Let's stop it right there. All right. So I was kind of cheating. I put up a bunch of framing, but just hints. Let's go through it. Let's go back here.
Everyone else will become less powerful.
So I'm not going to waste your time getting to the right thing. So what did we hear there? We heard, judge for yourself. Is this the person you want to grow up to be? Does he sound honest? Okay, none of that matters, how he sounds. What matters is if he's saying things that are factual. I mean, let's not forget, politicians have made an art and perfected the art of sounding honest. There's a lot of people on the left who thought Joe Biden was honest because he was old and ate ice cream cones. None of that matters. Here's a great example. One time, we got horribly ripped off by a carpenter. Now, it wasn't my decision to hire him. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but wasn't my property. But I noticed right away the framing of the contractor. He showed up for the assessment. It's a nice place. It's over on, right near Washington Square Park, very expensive piece of property. He shows up with a clipboard, fine. He has a full tool belt, and he has a Bible. Now, you know me, I'm Catholic. I'm not a religious man, but I respect people's religions, and that's fine. Maybe he always carries around a Bible. I don't know. But a friend of mine had warned me when we were hiring contractors. He said, if he shows up with a tool belt and a Bible, don't hire him. I said, why not? He said, well, that's framing. He's projecting honesty, and honest people don't need to project honesty. So what Tucker is doing here, in my opinion, he's framing Joe Kent ahead of Joe Kent's appearance. A responsible journalist would just let you hear Joe Kent's words without framing. But the way Tucker has put this, if you say anything bad about Joe Kent, you're against honest people. That's kind of the framing he's doing there. He says things like what everybody wants. He doesn't know what everybody wants. What I want isn't what he wants. This is all framing. So let's keep going. Now, we're going to move from framing now into his comments about his role in the intelligence community. Okay. And his actions. We might have to skip around here. I didn't prepare tonight's episode because I literally just got off the road. We'll do our best. So, thanks.
Where it should be, which is around its own citizens. Make the decisions that you make based on one criterion. Is this good for my people or not? In the way that a father would lead his family or an officer would lead his troops. It's not complicated. Everybody wants that. That's not a partisan question. That's a human question. And that's the question Joe Kent is posing. Why can't we do this? Why can't we say this? It's not an attack on anybody. Joe Kent himself does not attack anybody. But this is a last-ditch attempt, not simply to save the country from disaster in Iran, but to save the country, period. And as you... Is this a man who's working for Hezbollah, or is an egomaniac, or...
Okay, I want to stop it right there because massive frame right there for the whole interview. This is a last-ditch attempt to save the country. Is he talking about this interview? Because I just heard today that Joe Kent's under investigation for leaking secrets, an investigation that predates his resignation. But did you catch it? This is a last-ditch attempt. They're just trying to save the country because no one else can do it except for Tucker Carlson and his guest. Okay? Then he also says things that I take a little offense of Tucker Carlson talking about officers in the military and how they should conduct themselves. He's never been an officer in the military. Okay? I've never been either, but I was a non-commissioned officer in the military, like Joe Kent. I was in for a long time, like Joe Kent. Tucker Carlson's never been. That'd be like me saying, a good journalist. I'm not a journalist, I mean, I guess technically I am, but I would never say that. Just more BS, I guess. So let's go.
Leaker, or is this a man who says very little when he has nothing to say, who speaks straightforwardly and with honesty, self-evident honesty? Is this a man of dignity and decency?
Okay. Another one. How can you possibly know that? I mean, from one interview, like if you've never seen Joe Kent before, if you've seen him 1,000 times, how can you possibly know if he's a man of integrity or decency is what he said? Now, the way this is being framed, if you don't agree with that, you question it. It's like, oh, well, he's a man of this is not good journalism. He is seeding and biasing the audience ahead of the interview.
Is this a man that America once had a lot of? Is this a man who was once, in effect, the American archetype, the guy you looked up to, the guy you wanted your son to be? Whether you agree with him or not, maybe you're reaching completely different conclusions. But as you listen to him speak, ask yourself, is this the kind of person who makes me proud to be a fellow American? Because it's really a referendum on us. If we can't see that Joe Kent, whatever you think of his opinions, is the kind of man this country should be producing and should be elevating and should be proud of, if we can't see that, then we've failed.
Words you want to look out for is when someone tells you should be. Should be. He's giving us an order. We should be doing something. When someone tells you that, they are pushing you towards a conclusion. They're pushing their agenda on you with those words. Just keep that in mind.
Failed the test, and we've lost. But judge it yourself. Here's Joe Kent. Joe, thanks a lot for joining us. I appreciate this. So I want to go through the letter that you sent yesterday as you resigned as director of the National Counterterrorism Center, and basically through the big points and give you a chance to explain them. You've been spoken for quite a bit over the last 24 hours, so I think it'd be really helpful to all of us if you would speak for yourself and flesh out some of these points. I'm just going to read the first one. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. How did you reach that conclusion?
I think this is key. I mean, this would be more challenging to explain had the Secretary of State, the President, and the Speaker of the House not come out and said that we conducted this attack at this time because the Israelis were about to do so. So that takes away the argument that there was an imminent threat, as in Iran was planning to attack us immediately. That just simply did not exist.
May I ask you to pause? Sure. And so I've heard people say that, and this just happened, but history has a way of getting rewritten in real time, and then you look back 10 or 15, 20, 25 years later, and no one seems to understand the things that you saw because they've been eliminated. Yeah. So I think it's important to stop and say, here's what we actually know. So I'd like now, if we could, just to play one of the statements that you alluded to, and that's from Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. And this was shortly after this war commenced. And he was explaining, as is his habit, in a thoughtful, precise way, why. Here's Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Okay, so that is his almost contemporaneous explanation, and it's not offhand. He reasons it out. He explains there's a logic chain there, and he says, we knew not that Iran was going to attack. He did not say that.
Right.
He said we knew that Israel was going to attack Iran, and in retaliation for those attacks by Israel against Iran, Iran might attack American forces. So the imminent threat that the Secretary of State is describing is not from Iran, it's from Israel.
Exactly. And I think this speaks to the broader issue. Who is in charge of our policy in the Middle East? Who's in charge of when we decide to go to war or not? In this case, with what the Secretary described, and later on the President, later on the Speaker of the House, and the way the events played out, the Israelis drove the decision to take this action, which we knew would set off a series of events, meaning the Iranians would retaliate. Now, I think there's a potential there where we could have done several different things. We could have simply said to the Israelis, no, you will not. And if you do, then we will take something away from you. I think that it's fine that we offer defense to Israel. But when we're providing the means for their defense, we get to dictate the terms of when they go on the offensive. Otherwise, they stand to lose that relationship. And the Israelis felt emboldened that no matter what they did, no matter what situation they put us in, that they could go ahead and take this action, and we would just have to react. And so that speaks to that relationship. But also, it just shows that there was a lobby pushing for us to go to war. I know we'll get into that later.
A lobby pushing for us to go to war. Yes. Of course there's a lobby pushing. That's just part of the game here. But did you hear what he said right there? He said, makes me wonder who's driving our policy. Then he goes on to say we could have just told them to stop, or we'll take something away from them. So he's kind of contradicting himself. And by the way, no, this isn't biasing you. It's very important that you understand what his role is and where he falls in the pecking order for these decisions, for the intelligence that comes in, and operations in general. Okay? They've pumped this up like he's one of three people at the table deciding if we making war plans. He is not. And neither is the NCTC. Okay, really quickly, I have worked in that world. I have interacted. I don't want to get myself in trouble. I know the NCTC very well. Okay, I know the NCTC from the time they were stood up. I'm not an expert. Things change. It's been a while. But I know the way intel flows, clearances, read-ons, and who the decision makers are. I will say this is not to bias you. He's not a decision maker. Okay, so he's not. He works for Tulsi Gabbard. She's the boss to him. And the NCTC, just so you understand, is more of a fusion center. It's not even a collections platform. It's not an agency that collects intelligence. It's an agency that assesses and analyzes intelligence from a variety of agencies and then decides where this intelligence can be best used. You know, it was kind of the brainchild of the Bush administration after 9/11, where the big complaint was there were so many silos in our intel community that someone had to know that these guys were taking flight lessons and not learning how to land. And that was the big allegation. Some of that was accurate, some was not. And that's the whole point. So, you know, thinking you got all these agencies, this is supposed to find the actionable intelligence and get it to the right people. That's really, you know, I'm really paraphrasing their mission, but that's really what the mission is. It's not like he's running down the hallway with something hot off, you know, the ground from one of his collectors, because he doesn't have collectors, unless you count the agencies that feed into the NCTC as collectors. And remember, it's all in the name. The NCTC, National Counterterrorism Center. They're there to counter terrorism. Okay? And we're talking about a war. Now, granted, there's a terrorist element. Tucker confirmed that when he said Iranian proxies. But, you know, really their role was really more specific towards ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And yes, Iran does have proxies. That's how they fight. That's how they fight us. I mean, they almost have a land bridge going all the way to, you know, the Mediterranean of people they pay with mainly oil proceeds. Okay, so there's some overlap. And I'm not in those rooms now. I have no connections in the IC. But you're going to have him at the table when there's a very demonstrable type of terrorist, you know, group in the mix. So, for instance, had he been in his role during the Biden administration, he probably would have been very busy because they were saying ISIS-K, the Khorasan group, had swept through and wiped out the other terrorist group, the Taliban. Okay, but the Iranian government, okay, doesn't fall into his purview, unless I'm wrong. I haven't checked the updates. But last I checked, the Iranian government is not a designated terrorist group. But again, I don't know. Everything runs kind of different with each administration, so I don't want to step on my own words here and say things I don't know, because I don't know how they're running it in there. But I can say one thing about the U.S. government: people's lanes are very clearly defined. Okay, they're very clearly defined. Okay, it's not like, you know, like a Mitch Rapp novel or like, you know, Tom Clancy, where you got the analyst coming out of the DNI and next thing you know he's in a Zodiac with, you know, with the assassin because he knows. I mean, it just doesn't happen. That's yeah. All right, let's keep going. Sorry.
On in the statement. But we had a real potential, I think, knowing what we know of the Iranians and how they react, and in particular, how they react to President Trump's leadership. The Iranians, under President Trump's leadership, especially in his second term, they have shown that they take a very calculated approach to the escalation ladder. For instance, in the lead up to the 12-day war before Midnight Hammer, the Iranians didn't attack us. They were engaged in negotiations with us. When President Trump came back into office, they stopped their proxies who were attacking us under the Biden administration because they knew Biden was weak. They stopped their proxies from attacking us as well. So they knew President Trump was someone who wanted to negotiate, but more importantly, they knew that President Trump was not someone.
Okay, so right there he's admitting, which is not entirely truthful, but he's demonstrating right there, according to Joe Kent, that Iran has the power to just stop their proxies, who are constantly attacking us and our allies. I'm not sure how that's not an imminent threat. Does you see what I mean? I just see so many, and maybe it's my opinion. Maybe it's a lens I'm seeing it through. Good point. I'm just reading some of the comments here. Who is this we he speaks of? That's a good point. Not to sound woke or anything, but that's something to remember when you're presenting is always saying the pronoun you're using, who that refers to. Who's we? Is it the NCTC? Did he have a little mutiny going on in there, or just people that disagreed, which is normal, that's fine. That's a great question, Patrick. Who is this we he speaks of? And then Joe Linux 2000, welcome. The we is not me. Right, okay. And then Patrick says, I wonder how many more are there at the NCTC are in the Joe Kent camp. I'm sure there's a lot. He's a likable guy. I mean, he's, look, when you're at an agency in the Beltway and you're like an ex-Special Forces guy with like the sleeve tattoos, and his resume is impressive. I mean, it's he's gonna be, he's the kind of leader, like, people are gonna be like, yeah, he's a cool guy. I don't know his work performance because I didn't work there with him, but I'm sure a lot of people like him. Not to mention, there's so much propaganda victimizing him that people are going to be biased. Now, the good news is this: in the IC, you tend to be a bit isolated from the real world. I always describe it to my wife as it's like being in, like they have those, was it like SpongeBob or something, where the squirrel has the, glass globe on her head so she can breathe air. Everyone else is underwater. It's kind of like you're that squirrel. Like everything else is different and detached from you. And it's not for any other reason but because you can't really talk about what you do. You talk around it when you're with your friends. You can't really relate professionally to the people in the rest of DC. There's a lot of patent attorneys, a lot of medical. There's a lot of other jobs there. Okay? And so you always do feel like you're in a bit detached. So, that people tend to not see what's going on in the outside world. Like, and people in the intel community, they read newspapers, but they don't. I mean, it's just they're busy. I barely read the newspaper when I was at the intel community because A, it was a real pain in the ass to get, and B, I mean, what could the paper tell me that I didn't think I already knew, which was pretty misguided in hindsight, but these are good questions
to mess with, because he killed Qasem Soleimani, he killed Abu Mahdi Mohandas, he had defeated ISIS. They knew that President Trump was a man of action. He is militarily strong, and so they said, before we take an action, we need to make sure that it's calculated. So I think in this scenario, even if the Israelis told us we're going to strike on this date at this time, and we didn't, try to negotiate with the Israelis and say, hey, we'll take something away from them, I think we still could have back-channeled to the Iranians and said, hey, if something happens here in the next couple of days, it's not us. We're still serious about negotiations, and we don't want to escalate this.
When I was listening to this in the car earlier, I almost crashed when he said that. Because all I could think of was General Milley telling the Chinese that he would let them know if anything was going to happen. Here we have the same exact thing. This guy's admitting it. He's going to call the Iranians we're in a joint operation with the Israelis. And by the way, it's not like we had a couple carrier groups just sitting there and we're like, hey, wait, you're going to attack? Wait, no, don't do that. Oh, I guess we got to attack now. That's just nonsense. But he thinks we should have called the Iranians before an attack and say, hey, just if anything happens, wink, wink, it's not us. First of all, just from a cultural standpoint, he just got done saying how much they respect strength, okay? But we're going to pander to the Iranians and say, hey, man, we can't control these Israelis, so if anything happens, not saying anything's going to happen, but if it does, it ain't us. Who would say that? That sounds like Keir Starmer, when he was put out the big statement saying, hey, we did not let Iranian people let anyone else who bombs for you. It was not us. We did not let those damn Americans onto our bases. Are you kidding me? And no, not going to bias you. Want to say so much, but I won't. But did you catch that? I mean, really? He was going to backdoor to our enemies? And under the assumption that, the Iranians would, A, believe us, And he just got done saying they wouldn't believe us because of our last negotiations. But he would have backdoored to the Iranians before an Israeli strike? Does he think they'd say, hey, man, that's great, thanks for letting us know. We'll make sure we direct the missiles only towards them. No, good Lord, man. Not to mention he would get all those Israelis killed because they'd be waiting for them. Okay, Patrick says he's probably great friends with Dan Crenshaw. Probably. Let's keep going.
Because it's well known what the Iranians' plans were. We knew that they were going to hit potentially our bases in the region, potentially our allies. We knew about the Straits of Hormuz. All of these things, I think, were fairly well known.
And the Houthis' ability to close the Red Sea, which they've not yet done, but which would be catastrophic to the world.
Yeah, they brushed over that. The Houthis have not closed the Red Sea to this point. They've pretty much disappeared. You know why? Because the Houthis respect strength, and they see the Iranians at this point as weak-ass dogs. And that's how the Houthis roll. They will align with anyone. And there was a time way back when, I'll have to pull the link, but that they'd aligned with the Israelis. Okay? Now, I've got to confirm that, but yeah, but it's way back. But they haven't closed the Red Sea. Why do you think that is? If Iran is winning as the MAGA communists, which is not a thing we've talked about in other episodes, and the legacy media is saying, then why aren't the Houthis jumping in on that? As a matter of fact, why aren't all these terrorist groups jumping on that? They're not. Because they respect strength, and they see Iran as weak, because they're getting pounded into oblivion. Okay, so let's keep going. Those are good things to always pay attention to. Sometimes you got to focus outside of the framework of the operation going on. Look at the other ring in the three-ring circus to see what's happening there, to get the full context of what's happening. Houthis not doing anything so far is a big deal.
Everybody knows somebody who has had an unexpected
Christ.
tragedy. You lose a parent, a spouse, and that person, os.com/Tucker, application
Response. A file resignation by far in a long time. And there's a lot of commentary on this, and I kind of took a quick trip through it this afternoon, and one of the consistent themes is, well, I mean, of course there's a lot of slander, which we can talk about, but the substantive attack on you, and it is an attack or refutation of your letter, is that, well, actually, Joe Kent was totally for using military action. He supported the Soleimani killing, for example. He seemed fine with the 12-day war, for example. So he doesn't have a problem on principle with an engagement with Iran. You're saying what to that? What's your response?
Well, I have no compunction about really fighting anybody who threatens our country, and the Iranians have posed a threat in the past, and the Iranians have a way of threatening America. They have the capability, and we always talk in the intelligence circles about capability and intent, what your enemy is capable of doing and what they actually want to do. And again, back to the data that we have on the Iranians, they used the escalation ladder. We saw that deliberately during the 12-day war. When they struck back after Midnight Hammer, it was very deliberate. They fired an equal amount of missiles as we dropped bombs on the nuclear facilities, and they basically hit a part of a base in Qatar that they knew we didn't have any troops on.
Yes.
They didn't want to escalate any further than we were willing to go.
Didn't we lose a couple troops on that base, if I'm not mistaken? An equal number of missiles, so that's okay. Okay, the part he is omitting here is they did show intent. They did show exactly what they're capable of. And they threw missiles at everyone. Oman, Dubai. None of Dubai is fine, by the way. And don't buy into that garbage either. Dubai is fine. Follow my feed on X. People like Ian Miles Chung and a whole slew of new Dubai friends that I've met on various spaces. Some I've known from the past. A lot of British expats constantly putting out videos every day to show you Dubai is fine. That's Iranian propaganda because they're trying to hurt Dubai's economy if they can't hurt them physically. Okay, Dubai runs on a lot of things, but some of their prime exports are like tourism and, business tourism, those sorts of things. And my hat's off to Dubai. They've done a great job, and they've done it in a classy way of pushing back on those false narratives. And it's important that you hit that little grok symbol when you're looking at images of things burning, where you can actually ask Grok, is this real? And it'll not only tell you if it's fake or not, but it'll give you citations for context and for sourcing. I think that's a great feature. But it's amazing to me that he says they are, and he called himself, they were a threat. Okay, and they suddenly became not a threat. We moved to carrier groups there, and they finally say, you know what, let's give peace a chance. Not even close. And there's so much to unpack here. We're not going to spend too much time on Joe Kent in this series of things. This is just laying out the groundwork for a larger series I'm doing to show you that this little coup is forming. Seems like Marjorie Taylor Greene is in the middle of it. I don't know if she's the leadership of it. She seems more like the canary in the coal mine. If she goes down, I think the others will bail. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But let's keep going.
But also, the Iranians, when they pose a threat to us, they usually do it with their proxies. And if their proxies stick their heads up and their proxies come after us, this is basically the Trump doctrine, we hammer them, and we hammer their high-profile leaders. Qasem Soleimani was highly effective and highly revered in Iran because the previous presidents, prior to President Trump, Obama, and Bush, let Qasem Soleimani run around, raise proxy armies, kill Americans, and no one ever did anything to him. President Trump rightfully killed Qasem Soleimani. We got his deputy, Abu Mahdi Mohandas, who had American blood in his hands, took them off the battlefield. But then President Trump stopped. He took those two key players off the battlefield, and he said, I'm not going to further escalate with Iran unless you escalate with us, knowing that if we struck Iran and we truly struck the regime, that would only strengthen the regime. So then President Trump did something that's incredibly smart, used that decisive military action, but then he coupled it with an economic package of sanctions, maximum pressure sanctions. And we can debate whether or not we should be using sanctions as the prime reserve currency holder or whatever, but he pressured the Iranians economically. After punching them in the mouth and showing that, hey, I won't take this, I'm not Obama, I'm not Bush, if you cross a line, I will come after you. But then he really put the pressure on them economically. And if you look at the effect of the economic sanctions, that's what got the Iranian people on the streets actually protesting against the Ayatollah's government, which is ostensibly what we would like. We would like to see a bottom-up regime change where we get rid of the Ayatollah, but it's the will of the people, and they have a new successful government that's stable that we can deal with. The one way to throw that all out the window, and this isn't just Joe Kent's opinion, many scholars and I think a lot of intelligence assessments.
Okay, I just want to point out that those protesters in the street literally got mowed down by the Iranian government. Even The Guardian, not exactly anyone that wants to confirm anything the Trump administration says, is reporting like 30,000 protesters got killed. So by him omitting that, that's really disingenuous to me. Like, hey, the sanctions were all we needed. Look at the protesters are starting to go out, and then we screwed it up. No, they got freaking massacred. Like, are you kidding me? Seriously. I mean, that's just really disingenuous. And yeah, I gotta say, it's like, especially for a guy who's been to combat, and by the way, I've been to combat too, okay? And you're there, especially, especially when you're with special forces units, you're more embedded, or you have more connection, you're closer to the people. It's not like big army units that, I'm not saying they don't, but I'm saying, one of the missions of the Green Berets is called FID, or Foreign Internal Defense, where you're actually training people how to fight. So for him to ignore the fact that there are, not, bipartisan agreements on the massacres that were occurring under this regime is just blows my mind that he doesn't even mention it.
And written about this too. I know for a fact they have. Is that if we struck the regime, it would only strengthen it, and that's not. I think that's just basic common sense. I mean, I think of myself, and probably you're in this camp as well. We didn't like Joe Biden, we didn't like Barack Obama, but if an outside force were to come in here and try and topple them while they were the president, I would 100% rally around the flag. That's just common sense. So if we wanted to strengthen,
you actually did. You joined the military under Bill Clinton,
Under
whom
Clinton.
I assume you didn't vote for.
Right.
Right, you joined in 1998. You've gone the whole cycle of the war on terror.
Thanks, Patrick.
And served out as an NCO. I think your entire
NCO and warrant officer. Yeah.
warrant officer, 20 years. And I should just say, I hate ever to refer to a man's resume as like a data point because your ideas exist separately. But in this specific case, meaning
whoa. He hates to refer to a man's resume as a data point because it's about your ideas. No, it's about your qualifications before your ideas. Guys, look, the thing is, in the roles in the military as well as the intelligence community, and I've been in both, not as just military intelligence. I have worked in agencies. You're not like getting. I mean, Tucker is speaking from, I guess, I don't know, his own context in life. Where like, does he think it's a collaborative, creative brainstorming mission that decides the flow of intelligence and what's actionable and what is he talking about? We care about your ideas. No, I'm sorry. No. I care about your knowledge and I care about your grasp of your target, the situation, in order to create products that can then be delivered as actionable intelligence to the powers that be that need them so they can act on them. I can't imagine getting a report that said, well, they seem like pretty good guys, and Mohammed Durka, he's one hell of a poet. You should taste his espresso. We should maybe do that here. More espresso, maybe nap time. We care about your ideas here at the NCTC. What the hell is he talking about? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Well, not the dumbest, but one of them.
You spend most of your time fighting Iranian proxies.
Yeah, a good deal of it, yeah.
Yeah. So...
You know, Big Frame, I forgot to say, I know you're probably you can watch this on your own afterwards. And I'm going to wrap it up pretty quickly here because Patrick, Joe, all the people in the chat, I'm going to schedule this so you can watch it without me stopping it all the time. My plan tonight, and okay, look, I'll just admit it. Wasn't traffic, wasn't anything. When you're in the city, like right now I'm in Brooklyn, okay? When you're in the city, those things you take for granted if you're not living in the city are like a real gift pleasure to us. Like, for instance, being able to drive, like as in the very, very western part of Pennsylvania, but being able to drive to like a Walmart and park, and it's a full Walmart, not like something in the corner of a building, and that's a big deal. You know what I mean? Being able to actually hit the speed limit is a massive deal. And the thing about New York and Pennsylvania is that Pennsylvania, you can buy ammunition at. New York, oh hell no. The laws they changed in New York to buy any kind of ammunition is insane. So I call it ammo tourism, but anytime I'm in a state with looser ammo laws, which is every state around New York, including New Hampshire and Pennsylvania, oh, I'm going shopping. Okay, I'm definitely going shopping. Because you can't buy anything in New York without a background check. You got to do a separate background check. Then there's a waiting just to buy ammo. There's a way you got to buy it with, like, I got to pull the law. It's insane. So that kind of made me late coming back because I kind of took a route north. And then, guys, I mean, come on. Especially men, but I don't want to exclude the women in the audience. The most fun that I like about Pennsylvania, phantom fireworks. You gotta get them. Like, I don't even know what I'm going to use these for, but I buy them. They're awesome. And I went to the big phantom. I had to. So I maybe added some on. But I digress. Let's get back to this. But that's why I'm running a little late. My plan was to play big clips, and then we'd go through it. And I might do a thing where you can actually get on screen. We could talk, and we'll do a whole class. Someone was asking for that last time. But let's keep going. Phantom fireworks.
You're aware of the threat from Iran. You have personally used violence against that threat.
I have.
Yep. A lot of it, I think. And you supported the president's policy up until fairly recently.
Right.
And you've said that a lot in public. In fact, You went to work for him. He hired you.
Yeah.
Right. But here's from what I can tell, is the central question: imminent threat. Now, the president has said many times to many people, including the public, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he must have said that to you. You don't have to say it, but he said it to everybody.
No,
Is that fair?
they can't.
That's fair.
Yeah. They can't have a nuke. Whenever asked, we say, let's just start here. They can't have a nuke.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. Everyone agreed with that conceptually. Was Iran on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon?
No, they weren't. 3 weeks ago when this started, and they weren't in June either. I mean, the Iranians have had a religious ruling, a fatwa, against actually developing a nuclear weapon since 2004. That's been in place since 2004. That's available in the public sphere. But then also, we had no intelligence to indicate that fatwa was being disobeyed or it was on the cusp of being lifted.
I mean,
The Iranian
we literally bombed their facility when they had already been refining their uranium to the level beyond just for energy. I mean, this is, and by the way, like, who issued the fatwa? I haven't checked. That's the first I heard of that. I missed that. But even people like, I mean, my friend Brandon Weichart, who I think we're on different sides of this argument. This is my new Kindle. It's very convenient. I was curious because I saw Brandon, Brandon's my friend. He has a right to disagree with me. He's a very smart guy. I highly recommend his work. But I mean, Brandon Weichart wrote a whole book on this. And Brandon's not just some guy. He's a guy people listen to. But I mean, the first chapter is ground zero for World War III. And he makes it clear, and definitely check out Brandon Weichart's work. Seriously, he's, again, we don't agree on everything, but I respect his work. I call him the Rain Man of geopolitics, and he works in and around a lot of these circles, DOD many times, and he told me he got kicked out. And even Brandon says, in essence, Iranian regime is courting nuclear world war. At some point, the Iranians just might get what they wish for, and the Americans, divided against one another and distracted with an assortment of other problems, we are there now. This book is written a few years ago, will be taken by complete surprise. And this is called Shadow War, Iran's Quest for Supremacy. I highly recommend it. It's well-sourced, and he never just says anything without sourcing it. Brandon's been on the show many times. I'm sure you guys know who he is. If you don't, definitely check him out. It's worth it. But pretty much everyone, including Joe Kent, agreed that no, there's, and by the way, I have to research that. What's he talking, a fatwa to not develop nuclear weapons? Here's the thing about the Middle East. All right. First of all, Pakistan already, has tons of nuclear weapons. All right. And, Israel has nuclear weapons. But the thing is, there was this thing where, they were saying, I know the Iranians back in the day said something like, we don't want to get nuclear weapons because then the Saudis will get nuclear weapons and everyone will have nuclear weapons. Okay. No, I think what he's talking about is the Iranians allegedly wanted to keep it secret that they were developing nuclear weapons so they could have them first in the Middle East. So they can, basically hold the Middle East hostage. And for the pedestrians out there on X, the people that used to deliver pizzas that married some rich guy in England, that really don't know what the hell they're talking about. I'm talking about Candace Owens and Ian Carroll. These people have no experience in this. None. Okay? They're just reading what you're reading. They just have a bigger audience. Okay? But the thing is, it's to say that they had no interest, they issued a fatwa, he's trying to paint Iran as this misunderstood, peaceful place. He kind of reminds me of the write-up in the Washington Post about the dead Ayatollah, where they're like, his kind eyes and fluffy beard, mere Santa Claus among the Muslim world. Let's not forget, Iran wanted to be the first with a nuclear dominance in the Middle East, and they still do, those that remain, so they could hold the Middle East hostage. they feel like they're a minority in the Middle East. Okay, they are Shia, but they're also Persians. They're not Arabs. They speak a different language. Okay, and they've always, I mean, since the 600s, I believe, been in a struggle to be the dominant center of Islam with Saudi Arabia. Okay, and then right on their, all along their borders is, the Emiratis, Qatar, everyone that they really don't like. They're just in business with them. Okay, they really don't like. They're just, and that shows. I mean, you see the loyalties. The minute that everything happened, Iran is launching missiles at Qatar and Dubai and Oman and Saudi Arabia. And of course, Tucker was one that tried to blame the Mossad on like blowing up Saudi oil tanks or something like that, which is ridiculous. I've been to Saudi Arabia. You're not getting close to those tanks without getting shot. I mean, it's high security. It's just the most, and I don't know if you remember that, but like Tucker's like, oh, yeah, Mossad. And then from his sources, and then it was Qatar themselves that called out Tucker and said, we never had that intelligence. What the hell is he talking about? Paraphrasing. So just keep that in mind. But this picture they're trying to paint of Iran, this is a left-wing talking point. This is the kind of stuff you do so you can try to convince people that we're the bad guys. Okay? You know who would disagree with this in a heartbeat? Most Iranian civilians. The ones here and the ones there. Don't take my word for it. Check out all the Iranian sites. The only people that were against this, besides, outside of the government, the communist organization known as Code Pink, DSA, all the communists were against this. Oh, and these guys. Getting it?
Strategy, it's actually pretty pragmatic. The Iranians are obviously aware of what's taking place in their region, and their strategy was to not completely abandon their nuclear program because they saw what happened to...
Didn't he just say they had a fatwa against it, now they had a nuclear program?
Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, when he said, hey, I've got no more nukes, I'll do what you say, I'll give up my nukes.
And we gave him the Nobel Peace Prize?
Yeah, we regime changed him, and he was executed by his own people in the most horrific way.
Sodomized by a bayonet, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the lesson I think that the entire region took from that when Hillary Clinton.
Unfortunately, that is what the neocon, neoliberal warmongers. That's the lesson that they showed everyone in the region. And then conversely, the Iranians also knew that if they came out and said, "Okay, we've got a nuke," whether they were bluffing or not, Saddam Hussein, Iraq right next door. So they kind of had
he
this,
hung. I think
he was hung by his own people. After a bloody war that's still essentially going on inside of Iraq. So the Iranians' position, when viewed from the lens of the region, was actually fairly pragmatic. They were preventing, themselves from developing a bomb, but they still wanted the ability. They wanted the ability to enrich. They wanted the ability to have some components so that they weren't completely stripped of it. And when we always assessed that they were either several months or a year, 2 years away from actually being able to develop.
Didn't he just say there was a fatwa?
The Iranians are stupid people. I think we can tell right now that the Iranians are anything but stupid. They had the ability, I think, that the brain power to actually develop one, or they could have simply traded a ton of oil with Pakistan or with someone else to actually get a nuclear weapon. They were not doing that. We had no intelligence to indicate that they were.
Then why was the president?
Wait.
Was he told?
Wait, time out. Is he kidding me? Did you just hear him contradict himself again? We didn't think they were doing that. But he just said they were doing that. I mean, I was watching Dan Bongino. I was listening to Dan Bongino today, who I've always liked Dan Bongino, and keep in mind, Dan Bongino is the deputy director of the FBI. The FBI is part of the intelligence community, okay? And at Bongino's level, he's in a hell of a lot more meetings than Joe Kent was, okay? And there's reasons why the FBI is there. We didn't always like it when they were there, different FBI, but it'd have been cool to... I think Dan Bongino would be a good dude to work with. But, like, what's he... I mean, seriously, like, what Joe Kent is saying right here, that's like saying, okay, it'd be like being a cop, right? And you're watching, this drug gang, okay? And well, they got coca leaves, they got the other components, they got a whole lab. And we think they just wanted that stuff in case they might decide to make it, or they were only going to make it if they had to. Like, what is he talking about? This is, look, and I'm not being mean or anything, but when I got done with this interview, I was thinking, man, I'm glad this guy resigned, okay? Because he's either full of it, or he doesn't have a clue. And I doubt he doesn't have a clue about geopolitics. Look, and let me just say this. Going to combat does not make you an expert in that area. It gives you, valuable experience and, for sure. It gives you a sense of what's happening on the ground. It certainly doesn't make you an expert in an area. Like my friend Brandon Weichart, I've been to way more places. I doubt he's been to a combat zone, but he's more of an expert on the places I've been than I am. I mean, that's the thing. When you're a soldier, even a military intelligence soldier, you only know so much. Doesn't make you an expert. That'd be like, going to Disneyland. Well, that's a bad example. That'd be like going to, I don't know, Watsonville, California, and saying you're an expert on all of California and the problems they have with the lower income Spanish-speaking neighborhoods and the gangs. No, you just went to California, okay? Or saying like, oh, I'm coming up with bad examples, but you get my point. Like, and I'm not saying this to say anything bad about Joe Kent or anyone who's been to combat areas, myself included. But I will say this: I don't consider myself an expert on any of the places I've been, and I was in military intelligence, which means I actually had access to a lot more information than, say, an infantry guy. They got their job, I got mine. I had to have that intelligence. And I'll say this, in the military, you get the intelligence that pertains to your mission. You're not sitting in strategic briefings. It's a tactical... When you're a soldier, you're doing tactical stuff if you're in the field. The only people that are seeing the broad overview are soldiers that are assigned to, like, the DIA or, NSA components. And even they're not seeing the whole picture. So it doesn't make you an expert. So, and I'm not saying that to dishonor this man's service or disrespect it. No one can take that away from him, and no one should. But what I will say is, when Tucker started this interview, he's like, I think he's certainly qualified to answer these questions. And he Tucker is trying to, like, cohese his experience to make him an Iranian expert. He keeps saying Iranian proxies, which they are, Hezbollah and terrorist groups, but he's saying Iranian proxies instead of saying Hezbollah or ISIS and yeah, so I mean, he keeps saying Iranian proxies. I'm pretty sure, and I'm not positive, but I'm sure if we go back and look at Tucker's other comments on Hezbollah and terrorist groups, I'm wondering if he called them Iranian proxies then. Because I've never heard anyone use Iranian proxies so much. It's like they're trying to sell it and frame it as this guy's an Iran expert. I can guarantee he's never fought in Iran. We know that. Okay, we know that because the only people who fought in Iran are the people possibly on, what is it, Karg Island right now? Like, maybe, but Iranian proxy who happened to be all the way in Iraq. Okay, so no, like, it doesn't make you an expert in the area to go to combat there. It makes you an expert in what you did, but you're not in, it just doesn't make you an expert. So, and I hate when people say that, like, and I hate when people say to me, surely, like, I had some dipshit say to me today, he's trying to goad me into this Mossad question. Well, can you say Mossad didn't do 9/11? Well, I can say they didn't. I have a whole paper I'm working on that shows exactly where that propaganda came from. But I'm not going to indulge fools. Especially, I'm not going to debate on X. And if I do, it's not going to be with a guy who has a avatar photo and a fake name. And so I said, well, here's a paper, do the work. He said, well, I thought you wanted to debate, and I'm like, look, dude, seriously. Like, I'm not going to, I'm a busy man. And he's like, I would think a private investigator and a veteran would know the answer to that. I'm like, well, okay, even if that was true, let's say in some fantastical world, our allies decided to attack us with, the narrative being, oh, so we'd be drawn into war. We've always been in the Middle East, guys. Always. So have the Brits. We don't need to get drawn in if we want to be there. If we want to be there, we just go. Okay? And it's dumb, but he said that. I'm like, no, even if that was true, that wouldn't make me an expert. I'm a veteran and a former... I don't even know how the PI thing happens. Like, okay, so I get sick of people standing on authority of their resume. Okay? Like, you can have... If you're an engineer and you're doing engineering stuff, yes, that you can stand on that platform. But even if you were in the military, it doesn't make you a military expert. If you one time baked a cake, it doesn't make you a baker. You see what I mean? And knowledge is perishable, like me. Like, I've been in uniform for quite some time. I've been in theater as late as 2017. But that knowledge is perishable because things constantly change. They constantly change. You know who's more of an expert on Iran outside of Iran than anyone? The Israelis. And we saw that. How do you think we got all those targets? The Israelis. Because they have to be. Because Iran's made it very clear that they don't want to borrow sugar or coffee from the Israelis. They just want to freaking destroy them. And, so do half their neighbors. So that's the thing. Anyways, a couple more than we're going to. I'm going to leave it on a funny note and a couple notes before we go. Please watch this whole interview. And I say this, watch it skeptically. That's not a bad word. Because this is how I watch every interview, even the ones I agree with, even the people I like. I watch everything like this. Yes, I know it's exhausting, but you have to. Because there's such an information war going on out there right now. We have a whole component who's pretending to be MAGA who are not. They're either trying to run their candidate or they're working for someone who wants to scatter and divide the MAGA movement. And you see it. Okay, you see it. And I want to point this out before I forget. Joe Kent, would he resign on the 17th? On the 18th, he's at a Tucker interview. And guess where he was? Guess where he was? Yesterday. He was at the same prayer breakfast prayer thing called Catholics for Catholics with, here we go. That is really quick. Look at that. Senior Trump official who quit over Iran war to speak at Catholic Gala. Joe Kent. That's the day after. Okay? Catholics for Catholics. And just so you guys know, I don't know why that's not opening up. It's open early. Let me refresh. Maybe we'll get a quick, yeah. Anyways, I'll post the whole thing. But if you saw this Catholic for Catholic thing, it's pretty wild. Here we go. Yeah, so they had this thing, and the people that were at it, I honestly thought it was like a joke. I couldn't believe it. It was like Candace, yeah. Here we go. It was like Candace Owens, Matt Walsh, who I thought hated Candace Owens. and I'm not saying anything disparaging about Catholics for Catholics. I don't know who they are. But what I am saying is that, like, they got him there really, they actually got him as a speaker pretty quickly. And they said, oh, it's a last minute thing. I don't know, man. 17, it's like, how do you go from resigning to Tucker Carlson to the Catholics for Catholics gala? 1, 2, 3, 3 days in a row. I'm sure it wasn't planned out and scheduled. Of course not. So I just wanted to point that out. All right, where we go? We're going to do one more section, then I'm going to call it a night, and I will be back on this weekend. We're going to go through this whole thing. By the way, if you go through this and you want to share with me your notes, I will put them up. I will give you credit. You just got to let me know how you want to be cited. Happy to do it. Okay, let's keep going.
Told that they were on the brink of it? Why, at the beginning of every conversation about Iran, would the president say, I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon? Why was that the central question when... And you would know, since you were the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, why would he say that if there was no intelligence or evidence that they were actually developing a nuke?
So, I mean, a couple things. This is what I talk about in the letter about this ecosystem of information that's laundered through.
Okay, I just want to say this is the part I want you to pay attention to. I also want to say he actually just said there was evidence of them, I don't know, doing like just a tip type fashion of making a nuclear weapon, had all the components, and did you see the way Tucker kind of shoved that aside and he wants you, the bookend of that conversation is they had nothing to develop a nuclear weapon. We had no intelligence. I want to point out Joe Kent never said that. He said it didn't look like they were, but you see the way Tucker bookended that. Common trick with journalists. It's frustrating, but just pay attention to that. But let's talk about the ecosystem of intelligence, and I will tell you I'm going to tell you, like, not my opinion, what I know is right and what is bullshit.
A lot of prominent neoconservative types that are very sympathetic to the Israeli cause, and then also Israeli government officials who give us things in semi-official channels. What they did was they created basically a shifting red line or a new red line. So if the president's red line was Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, we've actually got a lot of trade space in there for a deal to be made. Because of what I just described with the Iranian policy. Essentially, the Iranians saying, okay, well, we don't want a nuclear weapon. Well, that means we basically are at a point where we can start negotiating and we can come up with a deal. And the president is a fantastic deal maker. So if your goal is to move us away from any kind of deal and your goal is to move us into a conflict, you have to shift that red line. And that's where a lot of this, I would say, what became a de facto U.S. policy of Iran can have no nuclear enrichment. It was laundered through a lot of the different talking heads, Mark Levin, Mark Dubowitz. You've got the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, you name it. Washington, D.C. has plenty of pro-Israeli lobbyists who will come and say those things, who will publish think pieces on it, who will go on the media, who will run op-eds in the Wall Street Journal to talk about this, why they can't have any enrichment whatsoever. And then we have a high degree of engagement with Israeli government officials who will come in and say, well, they're enriching and they could enrich or they could enrich more, and that will get them closer to a nuclear weapon. So then enrichment basically became the new U.S. policy. And the only official I've heard, and folks are welcome to look for this, that said this in the first Trump administration was Mike Pompeo. He said it. The president didn't say it. The president has been very consistent. He said they can't have a nuclear weapon. But again, like I said, that puts us at a place where we actually could have negotiations. And only President Trump, I think.
What the president says is policy. He just said it. They can't have a nuclear weapon. But earlier he said it was enrichment, then it became nuclear weapon. But he also said, well, the president said he's been consistent, they can't have a nuclear weapon. The president is policy. That's how it works. That is the policy. President makes policy. And he can make it with just the things he says. So this guy's all over the map if you really pay attention to what he's saying. And he already admitted to them having all the components. And by the way, you have the uranium, you're enriching it, and you have the components. I'm not really sure how he can say there was no intelligence to say they were in the process of making nuclear weapons if they don't already have them.
could successfully have negotiations with Iran because he actually punched them in the face. And the Iranians had been walking all over us. They had been killing our soldiers. All of that is true. I have no sympathy whatsoever for the Iranians, what their proxies were doing. President Trump level set that when he killed Qasem Soleimani and he killed Abu Mahdi Mohandas. The folks who wanted to push an actual regime change war in Iran knew this, and they knew there was a potential to get a deal, or there was a potential for President Trump just to continue the policy of maximum pressure sanctions, and if you come after us, we will hit you hard. And that got the protesters out on the street in Iran.
Okay, so let me see. Biden tried that. Obama tried that. Where'd that get us? Okay. Sanctions? Really? No, they didn't work. That's how we're here. And, definitely listen to the full statements by Marco Rubio, who I never liked in the past, but I didn't know much about him. But the way he's been handling his job, I'm impressed with. Okay? But sanctions for the Iranians? Come on, dude. What's been said by the president, by, the press secretary on behalf of the president, by Rubio, they realized when they were in these negotiations, the Iranians were just buying time, which is very common. Okay, just buying time. And it's not like they were guessing they were making them. There's other intelligence, okay? Now, the people that have the human assets and hacked their entire traffic cam system, which has been confirmed, I guess, or reported on by multiple media outlets, ones we agree with, ones we don't agree with, is the Israelis. So it's not like they're just selling us some snake oil and saying, just trust us. We've worked with the Israelis for a long time, and their intelligence has been sound. Now, he's going to say another thing here, and yes, I'm going to bias you, but I don't want you to miss it. At one point in the interview, he says something about how the Israelis provided intelligence for the Iraq war. Well, Curveball, who was the asset that provided us the key intelligence in quotes, to that Colin Powell and Bush used to sell the Iraq war, was actually provided to us by the Germans. And his name was Curveball. And the Germans told us, hey, do you want this asset? We don't trust him. They gave him the name Curveball for a reason. Okay? And that's what we used to sell that's what our leaders used to sell us into the Iraq war. They never mention that in this whole interview. Okay? They make it about the Israelis through the whole time. Also, at the beginning of this segment, too, he said the Israeli cause. He just introduced the Israeli cause into this conversation with no segue. We weren't talking about the Israeli cause. And I'm pretty sure, by the way, Joe, Mark Levin is not making policy for the Trump administration. Guarantee it.
And that's actually what the regime feared the most. I don't think the Ayatollah feared dying, not because he, is some crazy lunatic. I'm sure some degree of the Shia martyrdom culture played a factor in that. However, I think he knew that if he was killed, the regime would survive because the people would rally around the regime.
Well, there's been a lot of noise in the news lately, but none of it matters if you can't hear it, and there's no shame.
We don't want to hear you. Here, like, the people would rally around the regime? Are they rallying around the regime now? No, they're not. Are they out in the... Okay, people... An example of rallying around the regime, or I guess around the nationalist cause. Yeah, after we toppled Saddam Hussein, we went on to fight insurgencies for almost a decade. That was some of the toughest battles we've ever had. There's no rallying around this regime. None. And a lot of the protests you see, they just, they being the legacy media, which Tucker has clearly never left, they were actually, a lot of them you got to check the dates and you got to do the research where, like, they'll take, images of all these Iranians out in the street protesting on behalf of the regime. Well, again, you could talk to any scholar, anyone who's studied Iran, written books about it, been there. And this is a lot of these countries. If the government says, go out on the street and rally around us, you go, or you get shot. And then once cameras are off, everyone goes home and says, man, this place sucks. I can't wait to leave. That's just the facts of the matter. For him to say that the people would rally around the murderous, religious-based regime is just pure fiction, as is demonstrated today.
Exactly what we're watching, but it seems consistent with what we are watching. So I'm just focused on this question of imminent threat, because that's really the only justification I think most Americans would accept for a preemptive war.
Certainly.
Otherwise, just like a war of choice done because Bibi told you to, and no one wants to get behind that because it's obviously illegitimate.
No evidence Bibi told him to.
Imminent threat. You're saying that there was no intelligence that you saw with the highest level clearance, obviously involved in this conversation, that showed an imminent threat from Iran to the United States? None.
No, unless we took certain actions, unless we came after them in a way that they thought threatened the regime.
So they're just doing their thing, like a porcupine. Just leave us alone, and we want to. He just said it earlier. Components, uranium. I'm not really. Maybe he doesn't understand how bombs are made. I want to stop it there for tonight because I do want to point something out. Tucker Carlson is talking about highest intelligence. Okay, little note on clearances. All right. One thing, NCTC, of course, they have a lot more access because they're working with multiple agencies. Let me show you what that looks like. And by the way, you can just go to intelligence.gov if you want and see the way the structure is set up. So I'm going to share this screen. So we're done with the video for tonight because I will start cursing because I'm really tired. But let me share this. All right. So this is the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, which actually didn't even form until after 9/11 sometime. This is as of the 25th, but you see here there's the Tulsi Gabbard's role, and then over here, these are the centers. Now this is important. This is the Director of National Counterproliferation and Biosecurity Center. Here you have, I wish I could make that bigger. Let me see if I can. There we go. I'm going to shut the chat off so you guys can see it. There we go. Okay. National Counterintelligence Security, National Counterterrorism Center, Foreign Malign Influence Center, Election Threats Executive, and so these are the centers. These are fusion centers. These are kind of the cutouts so you could work with, agencies you normally wouldn't work with. Okay, we used to call them like alphabet centers or whatever, but and they're important. But look, to be honest with you, agencies, and let me show you the other chart so you see where the OD&I falls in here. Okay, Office Director of National Intelligence. All right. Now this is 2025, so ignore the names. But the way this works, this is National Counterterrorism Center. And you can see here, partnerships, public affairs. So basically this is like, okay, hey, CIA, get your intelligence here by the end of the day. NSA, blah, 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 DIA. But if they don't give you that intelligence, you don't know it. Okay? Yeah, I know. Right, Frank? Frank's got a good point. They love bringing up BB. No one even, or the Israeli cause. Give me a break. Yep, I agree. Black pill poisoning, a vid that Chuck Holton is doing tomorrow on his Hot Zone YouTube channel. I'm looking forward to black pill poisoning. I don't know what that means, Catherine, but welcome to the show. What is black pill poisoning? You mean like messing up? Call it. I get what you mean. Black pill, they're stirring it's so confusing for people that can't follow this all day long or don't understand the way intel community works. I call it the Carlson crazy train, which Kent jumped on after doing a 180. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's crazy, though. I think it's by design. Look, I think it's to undermine President Trump for some people. I think there was some foreign influence here, but I think it's to undermine Trump because this is like a power grab. They want to weaken the president. They see their opportunity, and they're going to take it. They're trying to weaken President Trump. I'm worried these morons might even try to ensure that we lose the midterms. A lot of the people that are in this network, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Jimmy Dore, Kim Iverson, the list goes on. They're the ones always saying it doesn't matter if you vote in the midterms. I don't care about your midterms. I'm really worried they're dumb enough to think, hey, we could throw the midterms, Trump will get impeached, and then we could put our guy forward because Trump's endorsement won't matter. What they're failing to realize is the Democrats are really quiet. They're eating their popcorn. Like they say, when your enemy is making a mistake, don't get in his way. If they think for a second that the Democrats aren't going to use this opportunity to eradicate any chance Republicans have of ever holding power again, they're foolish. Because except for Donald Trump and candidates he endorses, as weak as you might think the Democrat candidates are, and they are, they own the media. They still own the media. Okay, we're doing great with our independent media, but there are a lot of people, including most colleges, that provide USA Today's to their people, the New York Times to their people. You go to any hotel, what do you see there? USA Today, it's free. Okay, you look at most local papers, they're owned by the Koch brothers through the USA Today network. So don't discount the Democrats. They still have a lot of power of influence through all the media outlets. A lot of that was grabbed under Biden in the 2019-20 election. They were scooping it up. They're not going to let anyone who's not a Democrat get in if Trump is out of the way. So the way I see it is, we'll have to do the research, but if I were the Democrats, I'd be feeding like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker and all these people, I'd be feeding them money through cutouts. We know they're good at that, to make sure they keep rolling with this. This is one of those situations where, it'd be like if the Senate, it'd be like if Trump was Caesar and the Senate were these people. But there were other elements, like, I don't know, I'm not a Roman history guy, but let's just say, the Carthaginians were kind of surreptitiously feeding, Brutus some money, saying, hey, I'm actually not Carthaginian, I'm a Roman too, we're just worried about the people, here's some money. Buy some new blades. Okay? It'd be like if the Senate took out Caesar, okay, and then was allowed to rise to power, except in this scenario, it'd be the Senate stabs Caesar, and then the rest of the Senate stabs them and take their power back completely. You see what I mean? That's what's going to happen. And I do fear they're trying to throw the midterms. Let's say they're not trying to throw the midterms. I think they are. But what I can see is that they're going to end up splitting votes, because we know damn well this MAGA alliance will not sustain itself through the next presidential election. Maha Inc. is already laying the groundwork for the get out the vote, for commanding a lot of votes, for commanding a lot of influence, for getting a lot of endorsements. Just check out TrueMed and see the way that works. You might be able to put the dots together, but let's not forget RFK. He's going to make his run. And the people that back RFK, a lot of them are never Trumpers. And that does extend to whoever Trump endorses. And I want to point this out too. A lot of this rhetoric really exploded. It was there, but it really, really hit a crescendo, or not a crescendo, like it really hit a new level after Marco Rubio's Munich Security Conference speech, which was incredible. And I think at that point, these people and probably some Maha people said, we got a problem. Because I'm pretty sure they're confident they could beat J.D. Vance. But assuming J.D. Vance is not aligned with them. But they can't, a Marco Rubio is going to command a lot, including the Hispanic vote. Like in Cuba, they love this guy. I'd point you to Rebel News. They did a brilliant documentary where they went undercover. But the target here is not only Trump, but it's who Trump will endorse, and in my opinion, that will be Marco Rubio. So just watch out for that. But anyways, this is the wrong chart. Let me get the right one up, put this one back up here. So I would say, look, go and... I'm going to pull up the site. Here we go. Okay, so this is the official intelligence community website. It's called, intelligence.gov, which the first time I saw this after being like Intel veteran for a long time, I was like, wow, they got a website now. That would never happen when I was in. Like, that blew my mind. I'm trying to get rid of this here. There it is. Sorry, Catherine, I'm trying to find a way to get rid of your comments so they can say, okay. So I would recommend everyone goes and get the updates on the Intel community. We're going to not talk about it tonight, but I will say a lot of the things he says the rest of the interview, they just don't make sense based on what his role is. Okay, like, I'll put it this way, without saying the agency I worked for, we interacted with the NCTC as little as we could. You know why? Leaks. We had operations going on, and we knew it was a little loosey-goosey over there. Too many leaks coming out of that place. I don't know if that's the case today. I do know there are rumors, or I guess allegations, or it could be official, that this guy is currently being investigated for leaking intel. And it's, look, I don't know that. I'm not saying that happened, but put that aside. The very nature of having a fusion center is going to lead to leaks because people are at different levels of clearance. Yes, you have to be read on to a certain level to even work there, but things happen. People, like, there's, like the way police classify things as, criminal intelligence or something is far different than the way the CIA will. The classification process is the same throughout the government in the intel community, but not the same at the state and local levels. And it's kind of cool if you're a local cop, I imagine, and you meet a guy you think is CIA. Of course it is. When I was in the military, I met a CIA guy. It was the coolest thing that ever happened. I'm like, yeah, that guy's CIA. I later became really good friends with him when I was in, out of the military. It's like, hey, weren't you that guy in the Philippines? We ended up starting a business together for a little while. But, the point is, like, it's easier to keep things from leaking when it's just one silo, even though the silo creates the other problem. But you see, there's a lot of problem with fusion centers. I'm not saying that's the case here, but, definitely get acquainted with this. Let me see if I can pull up the page here. But, yeah, this is a good page here. How the IC works. Okay, so they go into all the agencies that are there: Air Force Intelligence, Army Intelligence Security Command, NSCOM, CIA, DHS. By the way, DHS was not around when I started in my career, and I remember working with the DHS, and I was blown away by what they were using for a database. It was pretty crazy, but we fixed that. I'll tell you right now, when it comes to nuclear weapons, this is the major player. One thing is that the DOE has one of the best intelligence services out there. We all want to think CIA. CIA is actually one of the smallest intelligence agencies out there, believe it or not. DIA, it's like the CIA for the Army. I'm not going to go through all these, but it's important to understand who's in the intelligence community. Okay, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Now, I believe they used to be called NEMA. And this is funny. I always wondered why it says National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. There doesn't really need to be a dash there. And I have it on good authority that the reason they adopted the NGA instead of the NGIA is because they wanted a 3-letter acronym too. That's what I've heard. But this is key too here, like Federal Bureau of Investigation is a big part of the IC. Coast Guard Intelligence, which also falls under DHS, Space Force, of course, is there now, and then the ODNI, which NCTC falls beneath, and then National Security Agency, which is Signals Intelligence, as you know. Now, this is really interesting. If you see the announcement where Tucker says he's being investigated by the CIA, that's bogus. The CIA doesn't do law enforcement activities. And then at one point in the interview, Tucker said, you know why the intelligence community hands things over like they did to the FBI? It's because they want to humiliate people, blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't hand anything over. The FBI's in the intelligence community. And they're there for that very reason. If someone's possibly violating FARA regulations, the CIA technically and legally cannot, nor do they, investigate in a law enforcement capacity. Like, that's where a lot of people get it wrong. It's like, the CIA doesn't do that shit. It's just not what they do. It's an intelligence collection agency. Okay, it's like the way people used to get the NSA wrong. Remember, like in the 90s? So remember in the 80s, like the big secret agency was the CIA, and that was across popular media. The best was after that, people discovered the NSA. NSA was all the rage in like the late 80s and the 90s, like the super secret place. But I remember, I forgot which show it was, but I remember they had this show, I forgot it was, but this colonel shows up with all these like Humvees, and if you guys can find it, I'd appreciate the clip. And he's like, "This is Colonel Jessup with the NSA," and he had like a badge and everything. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, in reality, that'd be a bunch of guys playing magic cards showing up in like their gremlin listening to, you know, Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, that's like the NSA. So yeah, check this out and know who's in there. I mean, and you'll see this is very, I mean, it's not Keystone Cop land. Like, you can't just do anything you want, and you can't just go to any briefing you want. And I'll tell you right now, the director of the NCTC is not at every briefing because he doesn't need to be. He also can't speak for assets on the ground collecting data, and here's why. So if I have a human asset, then that means I'm at the DIA or, you know, DOE or the CIA. Joe Kent, he's going to get my version of there's going to be a cable. That cable's going to be distilled down to, you know, more collateral type project. Not for them. They might get the full thing. I don't know if it's the same as when I was there. But the point is, he's not going to know who the asset is. He's not. No one outside that office will know who the asset is. My asset could be an Israeli, for all he knows. He doesn't know. He's just getting the intel, not the methodology. So he can't really speak for the quality of the people or the asset that provided the intelligence. He's not interacting directly with Israeli assets collecting intel on the ground in Iran. He's just not. It's just not set up that way for security reasons, obviously. You know, that relationship between a case officer and their assets, that's a really, really sensitive relationship. You know, the case officer goes out, they recruit different people, and that assets, you have to win them over. They trust you. And we all know, people who've worked in this community, you're not allowed to share the name of your assets. Your assets have pseudonyms. They have, you know, code words, so people don't know their real identities. So he really doesn't know where a lot of the intel came from. That's a fact. But they want to say they're acting like we did this whole thing based on just what the Israelis are telling us. Yes, the Israelis provide great intelligence, especially for regions we can't get into. But as you can see, especially with nuclear weapons, there's a lot more to it, which is the very reason why there's an NCTC. So he's working for a fusion center, but he's only crediting the Israelis with providing intelligence. I mean, I could go all night on this, but the hypocrisy and the idiocy of this man's presentation just blows my mind, because I guess, and I'll wrap it up with this, what really bothered me is the stuff I'm telling you is stuff that most first year analysts know. Like anyone who's ever worked in any agency or military, we all know in DC, everyone knows this stuff. Anyone who works there now, if they watch this interview, they're like, what the hell is he talking about? It's not like you got to be in the 7th floor or something to know this. Everyone knows this in the intelligence community. And everyone can watch this and say, what's he talking about? This guy's full of it. That's it. So, okay, I'm going to be a little mean here. We're going to get back to this later on this week, not tonight, because I am exhausted and it's super late and I got to drive to Boston tomorrow. So, but I do want to leave you with what I thought was probably one of the best impressions of Tucker I've ever seen, and it's really funny. And no, I'm not taking the low road here, but I gotta say, it really made me laugh, because there's a lot of people who could do impersonations, but this guy was amazing. Let me just find it while I'm scrolling. Yeah, so it was great. Oh, by the way, I do want to say, if you like, and I'm guessing a lot of you do. Hey, what's up, Blue Wolf? I see you, man. I'm so confused, but you're no longer tired. Hey, Ernest, cousin Ernie. Okay, so no longer tired. I don't know when you got on, but what we're explaining is things that work and things that don't work. If you guys take a break, and you should, if you like a good Bourne Identity novel or anything like this is not a sponsor, this is just my friend. Definitely, Dallas Ludlam has been writing something called the Bishop Directive. And I didn't know on Substack you could actually listen to the audio, but you've got to check it out. It was so good. It was so good that I was like, oh, damn, I'm finished. And I still had miles to go and I had no more Bishop Directive to listen to. It is some good damn writing, edge of your seat stuff. Now I'm at the point where, like, okay, he's getting into who the bad guy is. It's a very Bourne Identity-ish type of, but it's, I think, a little better. I mean, it's really, really good. Plus, I like the fact that the hero has gray hair like me. So definitely check it out. And you can find that over on Conservative Compass. Definitely subscribe. And again, not a sponsor. I just really, we work together over at consumerdiligence.org. But his writing is amazing. And it's just amazing. Like, I'm a Jack Reacher fan on long when I need to take a break and everything, or, Robert Ludlum. But damn, the Bishop Directive is fan-freaking-tastic. Like, he's just a gifted writer. He's got free subscriptions, but this guy, I'm sure would appreciate paid subscriptions, but it's free. And definitely go to conservativecompass.substack.com and check out Dallas's work. And he's got other things there too, great commentary on a lot of stuff, but my favorite is, it's just really good stuff. He's fantastic. All right, so with that one aside, I just have one little video I'm going to leave you with. And hopefully while you're waiting for me, you are going over to Dallas's Substack and doing that right now. All right. And here we go. It is funny to look through. I look through tweets, I'm like, man, what a waste of time this is. But I guess it's important to some degree, I keep telling myself. But where'd this guy go? Here we go. And I don't know if you guys saw this. Anyways, so Tucker did an interview with Brett Weinstein, which was, of course, more of the same propaganda bullshit. And Brett Weinstein's like, oh my gosh. And if you should probably know who Brett Weinstein is, but they're going on and on about how bad things are and everything like this, and this is crazy how this happened. And this guy does, I don't know the comedian's name, but he's so damn funny that I have to play this for you. I have to, because I laughed my ass off when I saw it. So give me just a second here. We'll get it in a second. And damn, I also want to go back to Dubai now. Like, if you've never been to Dubai, it's a great place. And I just love the fact that, like, there's this propaganda campaign to make Dubai, like, unattractive, I guess, to people. But it just makes me want to go back more. I don't want to live there, but I've always enjoyed it because it's just a cool place. And so I actually like Abu Dhabi better. I used to go out to this big weapons show called the IDEX. But it's these are all great places. So if you could ever get out there, I highly recommend you go. They've had no damage from bombs or anything like that. It's always an awesome place to go. It's an experience, and it's beautiful. We've had meetings up in the Burj Khalifa with, for business and everything like that. And it's just great. I love it. I can't say enough about it. Sorry, guys, I should have this ready. If you have any questions while I'm looking this up, certainly put them in the chat. I will get to them. And then, let me see. No longer tired says they have that weather right now. Okay, here we go. And by the way, guys, I'm very confident that Netanyahu is not dead. It's been debunked a million times. I should actually let you see this so you can see what I'm scrolling. So while I'm talking, so this is some of the videos people are pouring in to show that no, Dubai is fine. And then, yeah, this is the thing I'm talking about. This is the thing Joe Kent went to. The Catholics for Catholics. Candace Owens, Matt Walsh, who I thought these people hated each other. Carrie Prejean, that chick is hell on wheels, man. Like first of all, where'd she come from? And then all of a sudden, she's like lecturing people on Christianity and everything. It's like, didn't she put out a sex tape or something? Not that that bothers me, but I'm sure that bothers a lot of Christians. What you're seeing there is this ultimate takedown of one of Candace's like detectives, like citizen detectives. This is the guy that put out the thing saying that Erica Kirk was on the Epstein tapes recruiting young women, and myself included. Hundreds and hundreds of people just went after him, and it turns out he's like a failed mall cop or something. It's a brutal takedown, but you know what? I think he had it coming. So, and that is the man who led it right there. That's when it started. That went out, and then just everyone went crazy and revealed everything they could find about this guy. Is but the way I see it, it's kind of like war. You want to f around, you're going to find out, and that guy definitely found out. I think he's been pretty quiet ever since then. Okay, here we go. This is where I'm getting at. Now, if you've seen this already, bear with me. I'm going to leave after this, but enjoy it. So hopefully you know who Brett Weinstein is, so you get it. But this is the best impersonation I've ever seen. So I want you to enjoy this. Everyone who came out today, definitely, I appreciate it. We are going to... Yeah, I know, Blue Wolf, I hear you, man. If you missed the beginning, I had personal matter, helping a friend and everything, so I apologize. I'm trying to find a good time to schedule, but it's not all my fault. It's not all my fault. We move around a lot trying to take care of a lot of things, so I squeeze it in when I can, and Naomi's a natural. She just throws it on. She just talks about stuff, and she's already versed in it. I, on the other hand, I'm such a, I'm big on, making sure I've got it right, because I hate getting it wrong, and I need to know my topic, but I think I cover a lot more different topics, so not saying she can't. I'm just saying, us, we're just talking about a lot of different things. So Blue Wolf, I will do my best. I'm trying to find it, but I keep crazy hours. Okay, and Poppy, I see you there. I'll check that out. I don't know what that is, but I will certainly find it. Hey, no longer tired. I know. So what I recommend to keep up with things is only look at Twitter 3 times a day. Okay? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and limit it to 15 minutes to watch. Because that's where the confusion comes from. Even for me, I laid off Twitter for a few hours, and I'm thinking more clearly. The key thing is always, and we talk about this, figure out what question you want to get answered, okay? And then let's say that question is, who's responsible for making the vaccines deadly? And you're going to hear a lot of this noise, and you want to, we all want to chase because it's all so intriguing. You guys are all natural investigators, but you got to stay focused. Like my biggest inspiration, my buddy Dallas, because I'm like, bro, how do you write so well and get things done like that where you're writing? Because I'm terrible about writing. He's like, that's easy. I just shut off the internet. So it's not that confusing when you have, when you get all that stuff out of you. So but Twitter is set up Twitter's like a casino. You ever hear those reports where they set up casinos where they kind of draw you in and you get disoriented. It's hard to leave. That's kind of like Twitter, or X, I guess. Okay, we're going to the making fun. We're doing it right now. All right. Doing it right now. Thanks for keeping me on track. You guys enjoy this. This is the funniest thing I've ever seen. Have a great night. This has been Brian O'Shea, and I will leave you with, I'll find the guy's name, and you'll enjoy it.
Now, I want to be careful when I say this.
Yes.
But when Benjamin Netanyahu visited the White House and Trump pulled out the chair for him, I interpreted that as a threat.
Of course.
Where Bibi said, if you do not get this chair for me, if you don't accommodate me, pull out the chair for me so that I can first sit comfortably, something could happen to you.
Awful.
Now, we need to be very careful. I'm not saying that was an explicit threat.
Yes.
But the implication was most certainly there.
Yeah.
Bibi sat in that chair, hinting to Trump that the next chair you sit on could very well be the electric one.
Right.
Now, there's another idea, and this is not verified in any way, but I have heard that 90s teen pop icon Britney Spears is actually Mossad.
Britney Spears was Mossad?
We all have vivid memories of the Free Britney campaign.
Yes.
No one knows where she's been.
Well, she's not free. She's not.
No one knows her whereabouts.
It's so true.
And so the question is, was Britney Spears Mossad? Is she still Mossad? Is she still actively working with the Israeli government?
Oh, that's crazy. Wow.
And if you look at her discography, you can't help but notice an unavoidable pattern. Her first hit song was, as we all remember, Hit Me Baby One More Time.
Right.
Now, some people said that was about getting a boy to call her back, but it also very well could have been referring to mRNA vaccines, boosters that were very heavily pushed by Israel.
Yes.
Hit Me Baby One More Time could have also been referring to the actions of the Israeli Air Force, the Israeli military, to constantly attack its neighbors.
Wow.
The next year, of course, we had Oops, I Did It Again. Now, Israel has a pattern of doing this. You have in Iran the Ayatollah who gets taken out, and right away his successor gets taken out. Oops, I did it again. I wonder how true the oops is. Seems rather intentional. Now, we need to be very careful. I'm not saying anything. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm simply implying it.
Yes.
Toxic was a very big song for Britney Spears. I'm addicted to you, but you know that you're toxic, which, of course, implies
Fentanyl.
That's right.
Oh, my God.
And part of the Israeli assassination program has been using toxins,
Of course.
poisoning world leaders, using mycotoxins that are part of the mRNA vaccines, and these are dangerous. Another hit song Britney Spears had, Womanizer, which could very well have been referring to Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not verified. It's not certain, but we need to be very careful. Womanizer, womanizer, oh, you're a womanizer, oh, you're a womanizer, baby. You are womanizer, womanizer. Then you had a more recent song, Gimme More. Gimme more, gimme more, which to me seems like something to do with Greater Israel.
Right.
Ever expanding territory in which Bibi's been very explicit about in his aims, goals, and ambitions.
Right.
There's clearly a pattern here that's increasingly hard to deny.
Yes.
And so these are all part of a discography, a body of work by Britney Spears. And so I don't know if she has Mossad connections. That's not verified. And we need to be careful because I could be under threat.
Such a threat.
The story that we've been told about Britney and Free Britney, I just can't accept.
She's clearly a prisoner.
What's also fascinating is that if you look back at the 90s teen pop scene, who was Britney Spears' number one rival, number one competitor? It was none other than Christina Aguilera.
Right.
And her first hit song was coincidentally titled Genie in a Bottle.
Wow.
Genie in a Bottle is a clear reference to Middle Eastern mythology.
Amazing.
Christina was trying to signal something. Maybe it was the Qataris or the Emiratis or the Saudis. I don't know. We don't have evidence for it, and I want to be very careful. I'm not suggesting that they were behind this, but the patterns should be of concern. She's a genie in a bottle. You got to rub her the right way. Is that another reference to Epstein? Is it all connected? When she says, if you want to be with me, baby, there's a price to pay. Is that 7K? Is that...
It's a threat?
We don't know.
Dear God.
I find it all very concerning.
All right, well, we'd love to have you back on the show.
Would love to come back. Hit me, baby, one more time.
I love that.